Okay, enough rough theory. Let us comment on a game that I have chosen for two main purposes. First, because the f4 line is fashionable again. It wasn't popular when this game was played around the 90s, where almost everyone chose the f3 main line that we have already discussed. But as we have already noted, the f4 line is having its revival, and with pretty good results for white, so it is likely it is going to be one of the most used weapons in the Najdorf for white as of lately. So you better know it from both sides if you play both sides of the Najdorf. And the second purpose is because I think this game has every major theme we have seen about the white pawn storm so far, and possibly two more themes that are relevant that we will discuss when we encounter them. This is Alexey Shirov, Viswanathan Anand, from 1994, and is played in a Najdorf variation, which is the Eskeveningen B85, whose main characteristic we are going to see in a moment. First of all, going with the familiar stuff, and E6. This is the main characteristic of the Eskeveningen. Instead of giving up those squares while trying to push the knight back or to b3, black tries to get a more solid setup, not compromising his pawn structure, and usually getting positions that are more likely to just wait and see how white commits his position, most likely with an overexpansion from any side, and then attack. Like in this sense, the theory is like the Pirk or some lines in the King's Indian defense, which are familiar to every modern chess player, I guess. Shirov responded with bishop e2, which is a very dynamic setup aimed at preventing knight h5 blockade. So normally when this setup is played, white is not only, as I have said, trying to prevent knight h5, but also knight g4. Maybe it's a line that they don't want to go into now, and when trying to do so, it's likely also that they are planning a heavy pawn storm, thus they don't want the knight to be blocking their advance. Bishop e7 and f4, the line we're going to discuss, as I have said. Queen c7, one of the main alternatives, if not the main, this line, and castling. Let's see that now most of black pieces are locked on the queen side, so even if we are going to advance the king side pawns, it's safer to have the king in g1 for the moment. But speaking about black's castle, I wouldn't recommend castling here in this position in the 8th move for black. Furthermore, I would say that this is black's first inaccuracy. In my opinion, it's too soon to come into the castling, even more so when it's such a dangerous one, because there's not a lot of connection between the most of black's pieces and the king side, and I would say that short castle for black in these lines of the Najdorf, also in most of the not only Scheveningen, most of the Najdorf, is just to get the h8 rook out to even if it's in the 8th rank, to a more suitable position, square. And the plan for Anand here is to play rook e8 and bishop f8 or knight f8, defending more directly the f7, g7 and h7 pawns, but Anand would have had better chances for sure if instead of developing this rook, which is after all not going to be developed in a very useful square, trying to unravel his queen side. This premature castling is going to have very bad effect in the whole of the game for Anand, even if somewhat he planned to have a passive position and see how Shirov began weakening his own position in order to create an attack. But the problem for black is that Shirov created an attack that was somewhat unstoppable. Okay, continue with g4, as I've said, looking for the whole or almost whole pawn attack, and the plan of rook e8 for black begins, but Shirov is going to demonstrate that Anand is sort of lacking tempi to achieve it properly. g5, we have already discussed that this kind of moves not only continue achieving the pawn storm, but further conceal the initiative for white side, because black is not only concerned about the pawn advance and the attacking possibilities of them, but also has to find a squares to retard their knight, with h5 unreachable, and Anna has to get back to d7, cramping further his pieces and not improving at all his position or chances on the board.